Here's an article out of the USA Today. More than 6 million households missed their rent or mortgage payments in September. Persistent layoffs are slowing momentum in the labor market, which bodes poorly for the broader U.S. recovery as millions of out-of-work Americans delay their mortgage and rent payments. More than 6 million households failed to make their rent or mortgage payments in September, according to the Mortgage Bankers Association's Research Institute for Housing America, a sign that economic fallout from the illness is weighing on jobless Americans as Congress stalls on relief measures. CNBC had an article talking about bailouts declined slightly, new foreclosure crisis could be brewing, and it said, as of this week, 3.7 million borrowers are still in government and private sector mortgage forbearance program. That's about 7% of all active mortgages, according to Black Knight, a mortgage technology and data firm. So when we talk about these 6 million households missing their rent and mortgage payments, are we also including those that are in mortgage forbearance? Probably not. My guess is that the mortgage forbearance are already accepted as not having to be paid back, and so they don't count it in these numbers. So we could be looking at almost 10 million mortgage and rent payments that haven't been paid. I did a Google News search on consumer confidence to demonstrate how the media reporting doesn't jive with reality. Because after we look at these sets of headlines, I'll show you what the data says. MarketWatch, consumer confidence surges to highest level since start of the illness. Forbes, consumer confidence holding steady, unaffected by unruly presidential debate. CNN, Americans feel better about the economy now than at any point during the illness. MarketWatch again. Consumer sentiment hits a 6-month high in September for best reading since the illness. Ipsos, consumer confidence holds steady. Apparel News, consumer sentiments more optimistic, recent surveys report. Forbes, consumer confidence down, but poised for rebound. Seeking Alpha, consumer confidence sends mixed signals in September. Advertising Specialty Institute studies consumer confidence increases, trade rebounding. Most of these headlines were pretty positive. Either they said it was holding steady or it's the highest since the illness. Let's take a look at the University of Michigan survey of consumers. Here the index of consumer sentiment is up from last month, right? It's 81.2 in October. If we go to charts, and we look at a PDF of the last 50 years of consumer confidence, and we can see, look at where it's at. We've dropped a long way from where we were pre-illness. So when they say that we're at the highest point since the illness, it's still pretty bad. Here's another company that measures consumer confidence. It's called the Conference Board. They say the index now stands at 101.8, up from 86.3 in August. The Present Situation Index, based on consumers' assessment of current business and labor market conditions, increased 85.8 to 98.5. The Expectations Index, based on consumers' short-term outlook for income, business, labor market conditions, increased 86.6 to 104. The thing I have the problem with right now is when we look at the global consumer confidence indicators, globally it was down 14 points, Asia Pacific was down 19 points, Europe was down 14 points, yet the United States is sitting here up 15.5 points. Something doesn't jive. And, it could be just the expectations of where the future will be versus where they are now. Americans just probably don't want to believe things can get any worse than they are now. Consumer confidence increased sharply in September after back-to-back monthly declines, but remains below pre-illness levels. A more favorable view of current business and labor market conditions, coupled with renewed optimism about the short-term outlook, helped spur this month's rebound in confidence. So, could it be that because we have an election coming up that people are feeling hopeful? It doesn't really matter which part of the aisle you are on, left or right, or Democrat, Republican, Independent. Just the fact that we have an election going on and maybe people are feeling confident. We've also got the holiday season here. It's pretty big for us. Maybe the expectations are pretty optimistic here versus the rest of the world. I mean, it just doesn't jive. And when we looked at the University of Michigan results, up from the trough we had early on in the illness, but we're still low. So things are not looking that great. What I believe the consumer confidence headline should have said, what the media should be reporting, is that consumer confidence still remains very low, recession level lows. But that's not what they're reporting. They're just talking about how, we're back on an uptrend since the illness, we're at a 6-month high. Just remember, the media is doing us a disservice. We cannot praise increasing consumer confidence when we've already dropped a ton. We cannot praise increased retail sales when so many people are heading to food banks and not paying on their mortgages or rent. We also cannot boast higher retail sales when people are really just buying things online and mom and pop shops are still struggling.